Red prime beef, broiled to perfection at 1800 degrees. Some call it a sizzle. We call it an anthem.
As the waiter approaches, you think, is this one mine or that one?
Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Like Ruth always said, life's too short to eat anywhere else.
Make a reservation online at ruthschris.com or by calling 800-544-0808. You know, they say in life we should savor and slow down and enjoy things. That's what our hosts Steve Andrews and Sally James do on Slow Living Radio. They do everything slowly, and they do it for you Saturday and Sunday at 2 p.m., Tuesdays at 11 p.m., and Monday nights at 7 p.m. It's Slow Living Radio, the best in food, the best in entertainment, the best in drinks, including great wine. All with Sally James and Steve Andrews. Slow Living Radio on CRN.
Welcome to Divine Love Talk with Dr. Parthenia Grant, where we talk about health, well-being, and the love of the divine that exists in all of us. Now, here's your host, Dr. Parthenia Grant.
Okay, I am so delighted to have Kim Michaels back with us this week, live in studio on Divine Love Talk. And today we're introducing a new segment that will become a regular part of the show, and it will be titled Messages from the Ascended Masters. Kim Michaels is a designated messenger, and today I want to open up with allowing him to explain, you know, who the Ascended Masters are. And he's not a messenger for all of them. You know, there are too many, but, you know, they're Ascended Masters and also angels and archangels. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Kim.
Well, for me, the whole journey towards what I'm doing today started when I realized that there was an alternative to the way I had been brought up. I mean, I grew up in the West. Denmark is not so different from the United States. We also have a Christian main religion. And the way it was always portrayed to me was that in the end you have to go to heaven, but there is a gap between where you are now and how you get there. In other words, salvation is dependent on a lot of factors outside yourself that you have no control over. Mm-hmm. And when I was 18 years old, I found a book called Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, and I know a lot of spiritual people have read that book.
Oh, yeah.
And what it did to me, it introduced that for thousands of years in other countries, they have had a tradition where you don't see a gap between yourself and what we might call salvation or a higher state of consciousness. You actually see that you can start right where you are and you can walk a systematic path that leads you to higher states of consciousness, a higher sense of awareness of who you are. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was a revolutionary idea. I'd always sensed that there had to be something more than what I was told, because I could never identify fully with this, the remote God of the Christian religion or the remote salvation, and I, of course, could never identify with materialism.
Right.
I knew that I was not a materialistic being, but I also sensed that there was something that mainstream religion wasn't giving me. I needed an understanding. So when I got that understanding that there's something I can do by changing my own state of consciousness, that was revolutionary for me.
Oh, I agree, yeah.
And so what that did for me, it introduced the whole concept of a spiritual teacher or guru, as it's commonly called. And within just a few years, I had had various experiences with human gurus. And I came to a point where I realized I wanted a teacher that had no human self-interest.
Right.
Because I realized that the real goal of the spiritual path is to rise above what we might call selfishness, self-centeredness, the whole idea that you are separate beings and we are in competition with others or we are against others.
Well, let's pause and explain to the audience what a guru would mean for someone in the West, as opposed to in India.
Well, I think in India they have a very old tradition where you have a guru who has an ashram, and he takes students who come in there and he tutors them personally. And he's essentially a teacher, right, who has reached a higher state of consciousness? Or how would you define hopefully him? He has. Because, of course, no guru can take the students higher than his own state of consciousness. Exactly. And that's what I realized. Right. And so So in India, there is this very old tradition, and you have the concept that the student becomes a chela, which actually means a slave, where you're supposed to do everything the guru tells you to do.
Without question.
Yes.
Yes.
And I don't think that model is very suited for the Western mindset.
Not for Americans, no.
Well, not for anybody in the West, really for anybody in the democratic nation, because we know that we have to question things. We know we have to question authority.
Right.
That's how we have moved from a totalitarian society to a democratic society. Right. And by the way, like we talked about last week, we need to continue to question authority, even in a democracy. But so I think in the Western, for the Western mind, I don't think we can adopt that Indian model.
Right.
It never really worked for me. I loved the book about the Indian tradition, but I never felt moved to go to India and find a guru. I always felt that I was born in the West for a reason, and I needed to find some spiritual teachers that were talking to the Western mindset.
Right.
And so that's when I heard about the concept of ascended masters, which are beings who have been an embodiment like us. So
they've been on the planet,
and
they understand what we've gone through, and what it takes to get to that next level of what people would call enlightenment, self-realization, or what would you call it, ascension?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I would call it basically a higher state of consciousness where we are free from the human condition.
Oh, actually Christ consciousness, right?
Well, that's one way to say it.
Yeah, oneness with the divine.
But for a lot of people, Christ consciousness is so associated with Christianity that it has lost its universal meaning.
Yeah.
And originally it was a universal concept.
That's true, because most Christians think if you say Christ consciousness, it excludes Muslims or Buddhists.
Well, most Christians will think it excludes everybody because only Jesus could attain the Christ consciousness, is what mainstream churches say.
Yeah.
And that, of course, works against the concept of a spiritual path that all people can follow if they are willing to do the work.
Right.
And so, but it is a higher state of consciousness where we are free from this, the human ego, the self-centeredness. We're free from playing all the games. Like you have talked about the movie Revolver several times, and it's a good example of the games that people play and how we are all trapped in playing some kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you're not really going to be open to the concept of ascended masters until you realize you've had enough of all these games. You start seeing that so many things are just a game, and why am I playing this?
Yeah, and until you've had enough teachers who, that you've worked under, and you realize, okay, I've gone as far as I can go with that teacher because they can't really teach me anymore. That's how I ended up finding Ascended Masters, because I just couldn't find another teacher. And I did go to India looking.
Yeah, and I think most spiritual people, we have all had to go through various forms of gurus or teachings. And sometimes I feel bad for people who get angry on their guru and feel they have been misled.
Right.
And I'm not saying that gurus don't abuse their office, because some obviously do. But still, you need to look at it and say, this was just part of my path.
Yeah.
And I had that experience in order to increase my discernment.
Right.
Because just like Revolver actually says, one of the ways you figure out what you do want is to go through what you don't want.
Exactly.
And so that's just part of the experience. And I think we've all come to that point of saying, this is not the kind of guru I want.
Okay. And so now we're very, very blessed to have someone on the show who can actually tap in directly to the Ascended Masters and bring us messages directly from a higher level of consciousness, and we will be able to share that with the audience. And I'm so thrilled that you have agreed to be willing to share that every week. So even though Kim is here in the studio today, and he will be delivering a message during this hour, he will be recording them from here on out when he goes back to Denmark, and we will be delivering them every week on the show, whether he's traveling or, talking to us via Skype. So I'm very excited to announce that today.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Okay. So you let me know when you're ready, and you can start with delivery.
Well, do we have time in this segment?
Let's see. How much time do we have left in this segment? 4 minutes?
Oh, let's wait till the next segment.
Okay, so all right. So we'll continue. So coming up in the next segment, we will have the first message from the Ascended Masters. But I also want to announce that Kim and I are also working on a series of videos called "Practical Spirituality for People on the Go," and we've already recorded 2 of them. One of them is for people who feel that they are just too busy to be spiritual. And we've also recorded one for people who feel like they have just done too many negative or bad things in their lives, and they're just too far gone to be spiritual. And we will be recording at least probably 4 more before he leaves. And we will be uploading them to Kim's YouTube channel and to my YouTube channel. So I'm very excited to announce that. And also, I want to invite the audience to send us emails to divinelovetalk@gmail.com with any ideas for topics that you would like to have discussed in our series of practical spirituality for people on the go. Because let's face it, I mean, we all have to work for a living unless you're a trust fund baby. And we have a lot of students that are in school, and we have children, we have family members, we have so many obligations. And, you know, more often than not, our spirituality and our personal growth and our spiritual growth gets put on the back burner. And we just feel like, okay, when I get some time, I'll get around to that. And I used to be one of those people, but I do know now that I have to literally put my spirituality first and then work everything else in my life around that. And when I do that, then things seem to fall in place with a lot more grace and ease than when I try to work my spirituality into my regular routine.
That's very, very true. And I think one of the things we talked about in the series is that we can all find some way to fit spirituality into our lifestyles, because it is really not a matter of doing something necessarily. It's a matter of shifting your awareness.
Yes. And in that awareness into this understanding that I am a spiritual being having this physical experience on this planet. And I learned to see the divine in everything. In particular, the way I did it first was in nature. You know, with the trees and the birds and the animals, seeing this spark of the divine in them and connecting with them, and then realizing that everything, you know, has a spark of the divine in it. Even the people that are playing with the darkness and who are challenging me, they too have a spark in them that sometimes they forget. But
yeah, and sometimes we forget.
Yes, and we definitely forget when they're behaving that way. But I have to remind myself, and that's how I'm able to forgive and move on.
Well, and I think it's important, too, to see everything that happens to you as part of your path. It is an opportunity to grow.
Yes.
And, no, this planet is very good at teaching us what we don't want, but that is still a positive lesson if
Yes.
we turn it into this shift in awareness where we realize that we don't want to attract more of what we don't want.
Yes.
And the only way to avoid that is to realize that whatever has happened to us represents a certain state of consciousness, a certain mindset. Mm-hmm. And if we change our own minds, if we free our own minds from that state of consciousness, we won't attract the outer circumstances anymore.
And that's very high level thinking, but I do know, having been through exactly what you're saying, that it's absolutely true, that when I get the lesson or the blessing in my mess, then it really doesn't happen again. And so often, you know, we just have to get to this place where we say, okay, I don't want this to happen anymore, so help me out. You know, we surrender.
Yeah, and when you start surrendering, you also become willing to look at yourself. And I have noticed so many times, if I decide that I don't want a certain kind of people in my life anymore because they're negative, mm-hmm. after I find out what it is in me that makes me react to these people and surrender that, then I don't attract them anymore.
Yeah, and also sometimes it's a matter of why are we putting up with that kind of behavior from people? And when we get to a point where we realize, oh, I don't have to keep, living up to other people's expectations and other people's demands, then you don't attract them anymore. So I'm so excited to have Kim Michaels live in studio today. And after commercial break, we will come back with his message for this week from the Ascended Masters. You're listening to Divine Love Talk on CRN. I'm your host, Dr. Parthenia Grant. Email us at divinelovetalk@gmail.com with any special requests or questions that you would like for Kim or myself to address on the show. Divine Love Talk on CRN. And Kim Michaels, you can reach him at transcendencetoolbox.com. We'll be back.
CRN travelers, relax at the beautiful Fountain Grove Inn and Conference Center in Santa Rosa, California. Come to quality and come to luxury. Experience the newly renovated guest rooms. They're generously sized and they're decorated in the Tuscan tradition. They have great, incredible pillow-top mattresses, luxurious linens, and down-filled comforters. The Fountain Grove Inn also offers complimentary Wi-Fi and internet access. There's warm cookies and coffee every evening in the hotel lobby, and you can visit the newly remodeled Equus Restaurant and Equus Lounge with its new wine bar. It's the ideal place to relax and enjoy a glass of wine and watch our What's Cooking on Wine show on CRN with host Larry Van Alst on Wednesdays. It's the Fountain Grove Inn, Hotel, and Conference Center located in the heart of Sonoma wine country. It's easily located in Santa Rosa off the 101 Fountain Grove Parkway exit. Call 707-578-6101. That's 707-578-6101 or visit fountaingroveinn.com.
Hi, I'm Joan London, and if you're worried about your parent or a loved one living alone like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. You'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information.
They had obviously researched every place, not just given me names. Really? Yeah. They found me a place for what she could afford, and it was magnificent.
We're now very confident that she's safe, and they just helped every step of the way, and I can't thank them enough.
So if you're struggling to find reliable senior living information, call A Place for Mom. This is a free service, and you can trust them to help you.
If you're struggling to find reliable senior living information for your mom or dad, then call or go online to get the free help you need during this turbulent time. Call now, 800-471-5173, 800-471-5173.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control of your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank accounts, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problem now by calling the experts at U.S. Tax Shield and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. U.S. Tax Shield offers a price protection guaranteed quote to get you protected today. U.S. Tax Shield is A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, so call now. 800-351-8614. That's 800-351-8614. U.S. Tax Shield. 800-351-8614.
Okay, we're back with Kim Michaels and our new segment on messages from the Ascended Masters. Here's Kim Michaels with our message for the week from the Ascended Masters.
I am the Ascended Master, using the name Saint Germain. I am the original sponsor of this nation of America, and I am very joyful in being able to speak this way. You may have many questions about what an Ascended Master is and whether we are real, but I ask you to consider one question. Do you want to be free? I am indeed free from the human condition, from the illusion of the separate self. I know I am one with all life. I am one with the formless God, and I am one with the God in form, which is you. The separate self is almost like when you get into your car. But the difference is that you do not believe that you become your car by getting into it. But when you get into the separate self, you believe that you have become a separate being in a world of other separate beings, and therefore you can no longer connect to the oneness behind the illusion of form and separation. What you see going on earth is nothing more than the games played by beings who are trapped in the illusion of separation and who are yearning to be free for it, and therefore creating all of these manifestations that are so extreme, so painful, and create so much suffering that they finally come to the point of questioning whether this can be all there is to life. Now, this way of learning to be free is what we call the school of hard knocks. There is nothing wrong with people having the experience of being separate beings. This is part of what planet Earth is designed to facilitate. But we of the Ascended Masters, we who have been in embodiment on Earth like you are and who have ascended, offer you an alternative to the school of hard knocks, and it is the systematic spiritual path of raising your consciousness. Now, how can you do this? You need to realize that once you have stepped into the separate self, everything you experience through that separate self will reinforce the illusion of separation. That is why you need something from outside that filter of the separate self in order to realize, first of all, there is a reality outside of separation. And second of all, there is a way for you to overcome the illusion of separation and become free. That is why we have stepped forward to offer our services on this planet, so that through our direction, through our teachings, but first of all by receiving our spiritual light, you can walk that path of very gradually, as you are able to handle it, without losing your sense of self, to a greater freedom from the human condition. We are not expecting anyone to make this transition overnight, because we know how difficult it is to walk the spiritual path on planet Earth, and that is why we offer a very gradual path where you can gradually raise your sense of self without losing the sense of continuity that allows you to deal with everyday life. This is our offering to you. We have offered it in different ways for people at different levels of consciousness. It is a matter of you finding a way that appeals to you. I ask you to consider that you have the ability in your heart to know what is real and unreal by sensing what it does to your energies, to your vibration. You can know in your heart whether this message has raised your vibration or lowered it. And if it has raised it, you will know I am real.
Thank you. Wow, that was powerful and very direct and simple. I think pretty much anybody would be able to understand that. Thank you, Saint Germain. And Saint Germain is definitely one of my teachers. I've been very much connected to you. So thank you, Saint Germain. And thank you, Kim Michaels, for being willing to be a vessel to bring this message to the masses. So we will be back with more of Kim Michaels and his message from the Ascended Masters. We'll be discussing that and more ways that you can enjoy practical spirituality for busy people who are on the go. You're listening to Divine Love Talk on CRN. I am your host, Dr. Parthenia Grant. You can email us at divinelovetalk@gmail.com, and you can contact Kim Michaels at transcendencetoolbox.com.
What are you going to do with your old car? You can try selling it, you could junk it, or you could donate it to Heritage for the Blind. Your car will be towed away for free, and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-785-9618. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats. It doesn't matter if your vehicle runs or not. It will be towed away for free, and you'll be supporting those that need help. Heritage for the Blind is a nonprofit organization that helps the visually impaired live fuller lives. Call right now to donate your car, and as a special thank you for calling, you'll receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to many exciting locations. Call Heritage for the Blind right now, 1-800-785-9618. Donating is easy, and your vehicle is towed away for free. Plus, you'll get a free vacation voucher. Call now, 1-800-785-9618. That's 1-800-785-9618.
Are you worried about losing your home to foreclosure? If you've been threatened with foreclosure or received legal papers from your bank, you have approximately 30 days to respond. If you do not respond, you could lose your home. You have rights. Act now to protect your rights. You can stay in your home. Many times you can even modify your loan. The bottom line is you can get past this, but you must act right now. If you've been served by your bank and you're worried about losing your home to foreclosure, now is the time to fight back and save your home. Time is limited, so call the professionals at National Foreclosure Defense right now.
800-515-6309. 800-515-6309. 800-515-6309. 800-515-6309. That number again is 800-515-6309.
Come to Angelo's and Vinci's Restaurante in Fullerton, California for our sizzling party savings. Book your wedding event or reception, your birthday bash, or a special event of any kind and celebrate at Angelo's and Vinci's. Come to Angelo's and Vinci's and celebrate in one of our many festive banquet rooms. It's an incredible fun event you'll never forget. Food, music, and lots of fun. Call for the details, and don't forget our daily lunch and dinners, plus our Sunday champagne brunch. Just $14.95. Minestrone soup, sausage and peppers, pastas, chicken dishes, salads, scones, and muffins. Plus so much more, a chocolate fondue fountain, Zeblis, cannolis, fresh fruit, champagne, and Junior will be waiting to make the omelet of your choice from our omelet bar. Angelo's and Vinci's has been voted on the Orange County Hot List as one of the top 5 Italian restaurants for the past 6 years. And don't forget our award-winning pizzas. Thin or thick, they're yummy. It's all at Angelo's and Vinci's Restaurante at 550 North Harbor Boulevard in Fullerton, California. Call 714-879-4022, 714-879-4022.
Love the warmth and beauty of hardwood flooring? Then you've got to get to Lumber Liquidators Hardwood Flooring Sale for deals on over 200 varieties of hardwood from just 99 cents. You could pay twice as much at other stores, but we've got gorgeous, pre-finished, easy-to-install chase oak hardwood from $189. Stunning wide plank solid 3/4-inch espresso heavy for $299. Incredible deals on solid bamboo from just $129. Plus laminate and more from 49 cents. And 24-month special financing. The hardwood flooring sale is going on now. Visit LumberLiquidators.com to find a store near you.
Let's Talk Rescue Radio. With your hosts, Christina Hackett
and Chad Atkins.
We will share the highs, lows, adventures, triumphs, and losses.
Bring light to ways you can make a difference in your rescue community.
In addition, we'll feature animals with medical needs and a couple looking for their forever homes.
Join us every Saturday on CRN1 at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or call in to be part of the conversation at 818-353-1276.
Now let's talk rescue.
Okay, we're back with more of Divine Love Talk on CRN, and my co-host Kim Michaels, who just delivered his first message from the Ascended Masters. I was rather surprised, but also delighted that it was Saint Germain who showed up. I was kind of thinking it was going to be Mother Mary. I love her forthrightness, but it was appropriate that Saint Germain would show up. So why don't you introduce the audience to who is Saint Germain and why, he would have showed up today?
Yeah, well, Saint Germain is an Ascended Master. He has been in embodiment many times on Earth, and he ascended in the 1600s, so he has been an Ascended Master for some time. And he is the primary Ascended Master who sponsors the United States. In the 1600s, he was trying to work with the kings of Europe to create a United States of Europe.
Napoleon, and also, who was the other king?
Well, many of the kings, Louis XIV, and many of the kings at that time, and he was trying to get them to look beyond their self-interest to create a united Europe.
Right.
And when that didn't happen, after he was ascended, he inspired the Founding Fathers. The Founding Fathers, some of them were, in a sense, messengers for Saint Germain, even though they may not have been consciously aware of it and they didn't state it outright.
Right.
But the whole concept of Uncle Sam is actually the idea of Saint Germain sponsoring the United States.
Okay.
And his idea, of course, was to create a nation that was a bastion for freedom.
Yes.
For the world.
And he is on the seventh ray of freedom,
yes.
mercy, compassion, and forgiveness. And that's definitely my ray. I mean, those principles have always been so important to me. And I think people can figure out what ray, there's 7 rays. Like this year, we're on the third ray of love. And I think it's kind of important for people to kind of figure that out.
Yeah, and there are 7 spiritual rays, as I said, and on Transcendence Toolbox you can find more teachings about the 7 rays and their characteristics. But what's important to know is that if you are an American, you definitely have a special tie to the 7th ray of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise you wouldn't have chosen to embody here. And the United States really is, in Saint Germain's vision, it is the basis for freedom. And that's why, of course, he's very concerned about the fact that it has been turned into not quite being as free as he envisioned.
Well, we have the illusion of freedom, but you still hear, like the first thing you will hear patriotic Americans say is that we are free. We are the most free nation in the world, because they know we should be.
Yes, and that people tie into that, and I think many, many Americans tie into that flame of Saint Germain. But what we sometimes lack is the wisdom of the mother to look at the actual conditions and say, are we really as free as we know we should be? And I think that ties in with what Saint Germain was saying in this message, that freedom is in the mind.
Yes.
It starts in the mind, and it really, like we talked about, there is a spiritual path, and you could say that the goal of the spiritual path is to free yourself from the human condition.
Yes.
Because really no nation can be more free than the consciousness of its citizens.
Exactly.
And we have to realize that there's a collective consciousness in any nation, and that the kind of leaders we get is a reflection of the collective consciousness of the people.
I agree. There's a saying that you get the leaders you deserve.
Well, and that's because that's all you can recognize.
Yeah.
If a leader with a higher state of consciousness than most people decided to run for office, people wouldn't recognize him and wouldn't be able to vote for him.
I agree.
I mean, some people would, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why it is so important to have the concept of a spiritual path, because if you want to change a nation, of course you have to do an alpha and omega. You do have to work actively to change society and speak out and do other things. But the driving force behind any kind of change is a change in consciousness.
Right.
And that means that some people must be the forerunners for changing their consciousness.
Well, explain to the audience what you mean by alpha and omega. I know it's beginning and end, but that's our interpretation of it.
Well,
what do you mean?
In everything in life, there's usually 2 polarities. We have the masculine and the feminine, which is the alpha and omega. And the masculine is often the kind of the underlying cause, and the feminine is the more practical, detailed, how do we deal with the practical conditions.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying you have the alpha, which is shifting consciousness, and the omega is, of course, going out and working in society, being active, being aware, like many people are doing.
The practical aspect of applying it and making it work.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and speaking out. Just like you've been doing all your life.
Yeah.
And many people are doing in this age. But it really starts with a shift in consciousness, because you can't really get a momentum on all the practical things unless there are some people that are the forerunners for raising their consciousness.
Yeah, and you're right. I've had to be willing to be the crazy one, who's coming up with the ideas that people aren't quite ready, to accept, but sort of planting the seeds, so that the consciousness can blossom. And you can't, if you're a forerunner, you can't be afraid of what people are going to think about you or what they're going to say. You just have to know that the time has come to put that idea out there and just be patient and know that within a certain time span, it will blossom.
Yeah, but what you've also been willing to do, Parthenia, is you have been willing to work on yourself and raise your own consciousness.
Absolutely.
And that is where some people get stuck in always projecting that the problem is out there, and therefore they start working against other people.
Right.
And this is essentially what Saint Germain was also talking about, that people get trapped in these games of the separate self.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you see some people who are open to new ideas or who are open to the flame of freedom, but then they get trapped in thinking that the way to be more free is to defeat or destroy the forces of anti-freedom.
Yeah.
And then you go into this struggle against other people.
The epic battles.
Yeah, and that really doesn't help to promote freedom.
Yeah.
What helps is that you say, it's not that you become passive, but it's that you realize that I first have to free my own consciousness from the consciousness of the people that are opposing my freedom.
Yeah.
Because when they can't touch me anymore in my consciousness, but they can't force me to react a certain way,
right,
then I'm free. And then you can actually go and speak out in society in a much more constructive way.
Yeah.
Where you're not fighting other people.
I agree, and I had to get to that point, and I've been telling, people the same thing, but they have to have their own experience of it, is I learned very early on with a very, very oppressive stepfather that I could not, if as long as I was asking for permission, to be human, to be feminine and to be free, he was never going to grant that permission. And so we have to know that we deserve certain basic human rights and just stand up and say no. And at some point, the power structure, the authority figure will go, well, what am I going to do with this person? Because they've decided that they're not going to be oppressed anymore.
Well, and see, that's the key to freedom, because what we see before the creation of the United States, we saw societies that had physical oppression and slavery and dictatorship, and of course we see it in the world today also. But what we stepped up to with the United States and other democratic nations was really the necessity of us realizing that freedom starts in the mind.
Yes.
Because if you look at it, even in a totalitarian society, the power elite cannot physically suppress all people.
Exactly.
You can't.
There's not enough jails, not enough military.
You can't kill everybody.
Yes.
And you can't get people to kill their own family members. There will come a limit. So even in a totalitarian society, there has always been this projection, there's intimidation that you can't be free because of, and when people accept a certain condition, then it will trap them.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what we have been manipulated into doing, even in the United States, and that's why we're talking
voluntarily giving up our freedoms.
Because we have been intimidated into thinking, oh, this is the way it has to be.
Yeah, and what are we going to do? And so many people say, well, it's impossible. And even just the concept of being free of war or free of famine or free of oppression, it's still very difficult for people to wrap their heads around the fact that it is possible. But I know that I have to keep saying it, and if I keep saying it because I know it is true, because I've overcome so many forms of oppression as a female that you just have to step into it and own it. Because, I remember that movie Roots, that mini-series with Kunta Kinte, and I said, look, I can really relate to him. He refused to be a slave. It was like, you can cut my foot off and I'm going to still find out a way. I'm going to find a way, not to submit to this tyranny. And that movie Amistad with that slave that, really got up in a court of law and freed himself, and was taken back to Africa. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
And even if you're the only one, it shows that it's possible. And I think that we have to dream the impossible dream.
Yeah, and I think we also have to realize we're not the only one, because there are many other people who are at that level of consciousness where they're just ready to step out and basically it starts by recognizing, like Saint Germain was saying in the message, you are not a material being. Mm-hmm. You are a spiritual being who have come into this world, but you have not become the separate self, the human self, by stepping into it. It's just a vehicle. And we can really raise our consciousness so we stop identifying with it. And when we stop identifying with the human self, there's going to be no power in this world who can really control us.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that, when we realize that we create our own limitations and we create we can choose to stay inside of that box or step outside of it. It's like, those trained elephants, where they chain them, to a big heavy chain, and then you can put them, with a tiny little rope, and they won't even try to break it because they've accepted that I can't break this chain.
Yeah.
And we have to realize that nothing, when we move into that mindset of with God all things are possible, that's a very powerful statement, then we can kind of step into the realm of the impossible.
Yeah, and what the Ascended Masters offer us is basically, they are sort of the missing link between us and God.
Yes.
Because they are the ones who have been in embodiment on earth. They know what we're going through. And they are actually the link in the spiritual hierarchy that is right above us. Mm-hmm. So it is their task to step down the spiritual light from God, because the spiritual light that comes directly from God is such a high vibration, it will just burn us, just like if we got too close to the sun.
Right.
And so the Ascended Masters step it down to what we can handle. And so if we really want to change society, there is really only one way to do it. We have to bring more spiritual light into the material realm. But because of the law of free will, that can only happen through individual people who open our minds to receive that light.
Yeah.
And that is one of the really important aspects of walking the path.
Well, one of the things I've appreciated about the Ascended Masters, and all Christians are familiar with Jesus and Mother Mary and Archangel Michael, but very few other Ascended Masters, but they've always been there. I remember as a child, they were always there for me during very, very turbulent times, and I've always been able to rely on them. And I have this infinite gratitude for their patience with us and for their willingness to just be there when we open up to their presence and to their help.
Yeah, and that's important to understand, because I've had people say, well, why don't the masters just prove that they are real so nobody can deny it? But that's because the law of free will mandates that there has to be, on a planet like Earth, there has to be plausible deniability. Because one of the experiences that people want to have on this earth is that they are separate beings. So
and to pretend that there's, that God doesn't exist.
Yeah, and play the game. And so it has to be possible to deny that there is a God, or to say that God is only the remote being in the sky, portrayed by many traditional religions.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, because I remember encountering the law of, plausibility or how'd you say it?
Plausible deniability.
Plausible deniability. And I didn't like that, when I first encountered it. I was like, but yeah, if they would just show themselves, then maybe people would stop acting so crazy. But you're right. Then the whole paradigm for Earth, it couldn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and that's where we have sort of been brought up with an unrealistic view of the planet. We think this is the only world with intelligent beings.
Exactly.
We have to realize there are millions of planets in the universe, and Earth is one of the lowest in terms of consciousness. And so people are here to have that experience of the separate self. And it's perfectly fine that they have it. And they are allowed to have it for as long as they want it within reason.
Yeah.
And it is really a matter of coming to the point where you say you've had enough of it. Because the Earth is meant to give us two experiences. One is the immersion experience, I'm a separate being.
Yeah.
The other is the awakening experience, where you realize you are really connected to all life.
Right.
And what is going to shift the Earth is that enough people start waking up.
Yeah. Well, I had to laugh when you were saying that we're one of the lowest planets, because, I've always found it so arrogant, even as a child, that we thought that we were the highest, form of intelligence in the universe. And just look at this planet, it's laughable that we think that, we're so evolved.
Well, if you think there is a God and he's a benevolent God and you're looking at us and saying this is the best he could do,
right.
We have to realize this is the best we could do,
yes.
but we can do better if we're willing to
Exactly.
raise our consciousness.
Exactly. And God gets a really bad rap, he gave us free will and then we want him to take it away,
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us in this segment of our first message from the Ascended Master. We'll be back after commercial break, wrapping this up with Kim Michaels in studio, live and in person. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to send us a note at divinelovetalk@gmail.com. And divine is spelled with an I, D-I-V-I-N-E. And you can reach Kim Michaels at transcendenceToolbox.com. We'll be back with more after commercial break. Divine Love Talk on crntalk.com.
CRN travelers, relax at the beautiful Fountain Grove Inn and Conference Center in Santa Rosa, California. Come to quality and come to luxury. Experience the newly renovated guest rooms. They're generously sized and they're decorated in the Tuscan tradition. They have great, incredible pillow-top mattresses, luxurious linens, and down-filled comforters. The Fountain Grove Inn also offers complimentary Wi-Fi and internet access. There's warm cookies and coffee every evening in the hotel lobby, and you can visit the newly remodeled Equus Restaurant and Equus Lounge with its new wine bar. It's the ideal place to relax and enjoy a glass of wine and watch our What's Cooking on Wine show on CRN with host Larry Van Alst on Wednesdays. It's the Fountain Grove Inn, Hotel, and Conference Center located in the heart of Sonoma wine country. It's easily located in Santa Rosa off the 101 Fountain Grove Parkway exit. Call 707-578-6101. That's 707-578-6101 or visit fountaingroveinn.com.
When it comes to blood pressure, for years the safe zone upper limit was 120/80. But now, according to the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, slightly higher numbers may be okay. I'm Aileen Ellis. The experts say most people over 60 are fine if their BP is lower than 150/90. If you have kidney disease or diabetes, that top number should now be 140. Why are these findings important? Because now some people may not need to take blood pressure medication. So if your BP is in this okay range, talk to your doctor. And if your BP is still too high, try lifestyle changes. You might be able to get it down with weight loss, exercise, a low-salt diet, and drinking less booze. For more on blood pressure, just Google the words NIH and blood pressure. Remember, good blood pressure substantially cuts your risk of a heart attack and a stroke. That's Primetime Focus, brought to you by AARP.
Homeowners, there's never been a more affordable time to help protect your home and loved ones. You can now get a $100 Visa card from Protect Your Home, your authorized ADT dealer, with the installation of a new ADT monitored system. Call Protect Your Home today at 1-866-669-8954. That's 1-866-669-8954. Call now. 36-month monitoring contract required. General terms and conditions apply. Visit protectyourhome.com/terms.
CRN listeners, don't forget What's Cooking in Wine with certified wine educator and master sommelier Michael Jordan, coming your way every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific Time right here on CRN Digital Talk Radio. You'll find out about the latest trends in wine, food, and the good lifestyle. And by the way, Michael Jordan can talk to those of you that are really into wine and those that are maybe just discovering wine. The great educator Michael Jordan, What's Cooking on Wine, Friday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific on CRN.
Okay, this has been so exciting, launching our new series segment on messages from the Ascended Masters, and I feel very honored and very blessed to be able to share this amazing source of knowledge and growth with my audience. So be sure and send me an email at divinelovetalk@gmail.com and let me know what topics you would like for us to cover and any questions that are burning on your mind that you would like for the Ascended Masters to address in their weekly segment. And Kim, I'm so grateful that you are willing to be this vessel and this messenger for this material.
Yeah, it's an honor and a privilege for me to serve in this way.
And you're heading back this week, and it's been whirlwind. The conference has been wonderful. We've released a lot of light. I mean, the Ascended Masters released a lot of light over America, and in particular, Los Angeles. I can feel a lot of shifts happening within me and in the environment.
Yeah, it was a really powerful conference, and it's always powerful when people get together.
Yes.
And I think that's where we have to realize, like you said earlier, we are not alone.
Yes.
And if we can come together in some way, even coming together and agreeing that we want a new paradigm.
Yes.
This is very, very powerful.
Yeah, and I think we do forget the power in numbers, and that scripture where Jesus said, where one or more of you are gathered in my name, there I am, and the multiplication of our intentions and our efforts.
Yeah, and that's where we have to realize that when he said my name, he didn't mean you just go in and say, oh, Jesus, Jesus. He meant in the Christ consciousness, which is when you see the oneness of all life. So when you are in that state of oneness, and then you decide that we will no longer tolerate these conditions in our nation, it has a very powerful effect.
And I've seen that throughout my life, it's always been a very, very small group, and sometimes just a couple of individuals or one person, who has just come into this mindset, this intention that, if you look at Gandhi, he set an intention and millions of people, helped support him in that. Getting rid of the oppression of the British rule, and Martin Luther King did the same thing here with desegregation. So it does just take one person to wake up.
It does, yeah, but there's also really a power in people coming together, like you saw with the Founding Fathers.
Mm-hmm.
None of them could have done it alone because they needed to support each other. And it's again this, I think, the law of free will. It is powerful that one person changes his or her consciousness, but it is not going to shift an entire nation unless more people do it.
Join together.
Yeah, there needs to be a certain critical mass of people who are deciding we've had enough of the old, we want a new paradigm.
Yeah, and I think we need to remember it doesn't have to be, millions in the beginning. It can just be this small little mass that comes together. And we're beginning that right here on Divine Love Talk on CRN. The two of us creating this mastermind, deciding that we wanted to do it and opening the door for the Ascended Masters and for all of you to join us in this effort to raise our consciousness and thereby raising the consciousness of the planet. Thank you so much for joining us for this special segment and for joining us every week on Divine Love Talk, where we're so privileged to be able to speak freely on, all subjects of the heart. We will be back next week sharing another message from the Ascended Master, and we will also be bringing in new guests every week as well. So thank you for joining us, and thank you, Kim Michaels.
Thank you.
And thank you, Saint Germain, for showing up. All right. We'll see you guys next week on Divine Love Talk.
Because that was your theme. Are you tired of hearing your favorite talk radio shows sound like this? What if you could hear your favorite shows in crystal clear, high definition digital?